So our third and final speaker is Hayg Oshagan. Hayg received his PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1987 with a degree in communications. He's Associate Professor of Communications at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. He's also the Director of New Michigan Media, which focuses on ethnic media throughout the state of Michigan. He has served as chair of the ARF Central Committee in the U.S. and has also served as a member of the ARF Bureau. His presentation today is entitled A New Diaspora Narrative.
What I decided to do is just to talk and share with you my concerns. The situation as I see it, the problems that I see them, and then discuss potentially what can be done, what the challenges are in a sort of broad conversation. Because I think this issue is the fundamental challenge of all of us as a nation. And if challenges were easy to solve, we would have solved it already. But they aren't. And I don't think anyone has any answers to any of these. But I think there's value in thinking about them and hearing potential issues. So let me begin, and I will end by saying we will need a new way of thinking about the diaspora. It needs a new narrative of who we are, what we are doing, and where we are going. But before I get there, I want to begin by laying the groundwork by making two assertions, two assumptions that I have. The first is that there is no return to Armenia. None of us is going back. We are here and we will be here. And the idea of return, Veratarts, Tebi Armenia, is a generational, historical, essentially it represents a historical understanding of what we were doing. My grandfather, Hayg Oshagan, would say that he wanted to be buried under the shadow of Mount Ararat. That generation had a memory of the homeland. That generation had to leave the homeland. That generation expected to return to the homeland. And so they thought there would be a Veratars one day, a return one day. My father's generation picked that same theme up. All of the whatever communities we have built by that generation expected someday to go back. The ARF Zrakir for a long time had 100 years. Veratars return is part of the ideology of the organization. The nationalism of the ARF, the nationalism in general, Askaynaganutuna, also assumes that nations survive on home soil with a border around it. And we were led generally by nationalist organizations as a diaspora. And so nationalist organizations expect that you need a country, a land with its borders for the nation to be able to survive. And so being outside of a land of borders also undermined the viability of the nation in the eyes of our leadership for 100 years, I think. In my opinion, it's fair to say. We live in a different world now, however. My generation, my kids' generation, lives in a virtual world of citizenship and belonging. You don't need to be in Hayastan to feel Armenian. You don't need to be anywhere to feel a citizenship to somewhere else, some other nation, some other idea. We live in an era of people figuring out who they belong to and what they belong to. The idea of land and borders as the determinant of what we can become, I think that time is in flux. We also have, I think, a diasporan comfort level. There's something about growing up in a diaspora with the challenges that we have, with the world that we have, with the messy, textured life that we have, that feels different when you go to Hayastan. And a lot of people are happy to visit, but not to live in Armenia. I think it's fair to say that people do go back. I mean, obviously, you all probably know someone who's moved back and lived there. But you know, Armenia's net migration is negative. More people leave than come back over all these decades. And to me, when someone goes to visit or someone buys a house and goes there in the summertime, or someone goes and stays there for a month or 2 months, that's not Veratarts to me. Okay? That's a visit. You are still here. This is still your anchor. You are going there for I mean, it's great that we can do this, but it is not Veratarts in the sense of moving back and reestablishing life in a different place. Very few have done that. If we look at other places, there's also no Veratarts. The best comparison is often the Jewish community, the Jewish world. And if you know, you want a modern nation that has every amenity you want, you can look at Israel. And yet, over half of Jews live outside of Israel. The Jewish nation is about 45% in Israel, 55% outside of Israel. And so the 55% outside have no intention of going back either. They are diasporan Jews. They are comfortable where they are. And the return hasn't happened there either. Right after the independence of Israel, a large wave went back. But since then, it has stopped. Nowadays, the return to Israel is about 15,000 or so a year. And so the diasporan Jewish community has no Veratarts. There's no return either. First assumption then is this. There's no return. The second assumption is that the diaspora is permanent. You know, I don't see it as going anywhere, disappearing. Communities disappear. Communities come and go. You know, Lebanon used to have 250,000. Now it's 50,000. LA has 700,000. It had no one, you know, 75 years ago. Haleb is being depopulated, but Montreal is getting huge as people are moving there. There's a you know, movement in our nation, and the fact that we move. I was born in Lebanon, and then I moved to the United States, and I went from this place to that place in the United States, and I never thought of it as a home, any one place. I think makes us think that everything is temporary. But in reality, if you look at our diaspora, it's been around for a long time. You can count our diaspora for 1,000 years, actually. And yes, India has disappeared, but as I know, Toronto, Montreal, here, communities come and go and grow, but we have a diaspora. So the second assumption I'm going to make is that the diaspora is permanent. It's not going to disappear. Unless, of course, we don't take care of it. And this takes me to the problem that we have, in my opinion. The problem is that we have treated the diaspora as if it were temporary. We have grown generations. For 100 years, the narrative of return assumes a temporary place out here. I remember growing up, the return was even to our Western Armenian lands. You know, people learned the villages that they were from. My wife visited the village, Pahu, that she's from. But in the 70s and 80s, we were talking about going back, maybe even to Babagan, Hogere, you know, Western Armenia. Then Armenia became a place, and the return idea became powerful as well to go to Armenia. So this idea of being temporary in the diaspora has been around for a long time as a narrative, as a meta understanding of what we're doing. That is, we are here for now, but we're not here forever. This has been part of how we have all grown up. The second aspect of this to me is that there was almost always handsunk in being out here. There was a shamefulness associated with being, an inauthenticness about being outside of Hayastan. That a real Armenian eventually would go there. That being out here somehow was less meaningful as being an Armenian, because we were in the diaspora, we were in the spirit. We were making do with things here, but it's iragana honor. And so the idea of, you know, Hansang, Badij, Gerzutyun, Lusansky vra, Jamanagavre, Tsahogutyun, Tsahohayugang, Ardaksavaz, all of these have negative connotations to them. That older generations have it even more than my generation do. But it was part of the thread of how we understood ourselves and where we were and who we were. The second major problem, in addition to these two of the narrative of temporariness, was the Tebi Yergir that, in my opinion, added to this in the 1990s. Tebi Yergir became an ideology of what we were doing also. I understand and I fully supported right after independence and the Karabakh independence war that we needed to look over there. We needed to support everything we could over there. It was our nation declaring independence and Karabakh declaring independence. But it hasn't changed. It's been 35 years. And Tebi Yergir became a dominant understanding of what we were doing. Tebi Yergir became not only a physical Tebi Yergir move, Tebi Yergir became also a direction of concern, a direction of attention, a direction of what mattered and what didn't matter. Tebi Yergir mattered. Tebi Spirk is not even something anyone says. Even though everyone is, that's the way everyone's going, Tebi Spirk, right? And so the ideology of Tebi Yergir added, I think, to the temporariness of our world, to add to the sense of that direction and not here and not this direction. These two together, I think, have left the spirit of the diaspora without leadership, without direction, without a sense of what are we doing here and where are we going out here. It's one thing to say over there, we're going over there. But if we're not going over there, where are we going? If we aren't, as I said, none of us is moving to Hayastan. And if over there is not the direction, then what is the direction? What is the point? Where are we 25, 30 years from now? This narrative is missing. This conversation was easily, in my mind, taken over by Tebi Yergir that took care of anything you had to worry about. Don't worry about it, Tebi Yergir. Don't worry about it, Hayastan. Don't worry about it, Karabakh. That's everything is over there. Okay, but that's, I think now we are rethinking, or we need to rethink some of these narratives of what we are, who we are, what are we doing. I'm perfectly more than happy for those for who this is the direction. Life is much simpler. Yeah, now you're here, maybe tomorrow you're over there. All your concerns are helping over there, great. Now, I have no issue with that. But most of us are not in that situation. Most people I meet have an anxiety about what it is to be out here. My kids don't have that sense exactly of, that's the answer, that's the explanation, look over there. That's not how they are. Even though they've grown up in a Tashtaksagan household. My wife and I are both Tashtaksagans. We're both nationalists, at least nominally. But that's not who they are. That's not how they think of it. And so the question then becomes, well, then what is the answer then? And what are you doing then? Where are you going then? What is tomorrow like then? This is a fundamental issue. This is a fundamental question for all of us to start thinking about, in my opinion. And not just that, to come up with some explanation, some answer. This is the direction that's missing in my mind. The Tebi Hayastan direction is clear. The Tebi Hayastan resources and interest and explanation is clear, but the alternative is not. And for most, and look, 3/4 of our nation lives out here. 3/4 of all Armenians are outside of Hayastan. If we are concerned about where this nation is going, this is where we need to be figuring out answers to. Because to me, where Hayastan is going is pretty clear. I mean, Hayastan has clear needs. Hayastan has government. Hayastan has an institution. Hayastan has laws. Hayastan has an army. Hayastan has an economy. Hayastan has everything. What do we have out here? How are we governed out here? Who gives us direction out here? Organizations, political organizations, churches, memories. This is very fragile, very weak stuff to base our being, our existence, our understanding on. This is what I'm concerned about. This is my fundamental concern. Given my two initial assumptions that no one's going back and that we are here permanently, given these two, what we've done over the last 35 plus years is not enough. We need to start rethinking of what it is and what it is that we're doing. This is the meta-narrative that I'm referring to. So I think to sort of discuss some ideas in terms of ways to answer some of these, I think we need to do a few things. One is that we need to accept this reality, first of all. My first two assumptions, I'm not sure how many of you would accept. There is no return and we are a permanent diaspora. Yeah, I don't know how many of you would accept this. But this is the first thing to come to grips with. Is this it or is this not it? Are we going back or are we staying here? Are we permanent or are we not permanent? The second is to rethink this diasporan narrative. It's not, to me, enough to say we're partners with Armenia. Okay, I didn't hear what Khajak said, Khachik said, or Khachik said, but he's like an India actually. But I commonly come across this that, well, Hayastan and Spirit for each other, Hayastan and Spirit are partners. Partners become partners to accomplish something. What is our partnership taking us to? What is a partnership between Diaspora and Armenia leading towards? What is it that we are working towards? I understand working as a partnership to the benefit of Hayastan. I don't understand how the partnership would work to benefit the Spirit right now. Okay? I don't understand this exactly. If you call it a partnership, I don't know what it is exactly as a partnership. If you call it, we're one family, we're two brothers or two sisters. Yes, we love each other, obviously. But brothers have their own lives. Okay. I can see my Armenian brother, Armenia as a brother and the life it has. I don't know what the life here is leading to if it's two brothers as one nation. This is part of the missing narrative that we haven't figured out, we haven't cultivated. And Haya Bahbanum, to me, is not a narrative. Okay, Haya Bahbanum it's something else will lead to Haya Bahbanum. Haya Bahbanum itself is not an objective. It is not something that's an ultimate goal. We have to, I think, strengthen the diaspora materially. We have to invest more here. We have invested tremendously in Armenia and Karabakh, and I'm extremely happy that we have done so. But it is time to invest materially here. Over the last 30 plus years, as an example, very few new buildings have been built in the whole eastern region of the United States. Even in California, Tek Tük Paner have been built in California. The project we are doing in Detroit, our construction for our new community center will cost us $25 million. It is the first substantial investment into ourselves, and for our future here that I can remember for a very long time in our region. You think about, for example, what was built recently from Florida to Boston in our region. What new school, what new building other than a church was built in our communities? Nasser, okay. We need to invest in our future. I can tell you in Los Angeles, the Armenian schools have a wait list for kids to be able to go to Armenian school. You know how long the wait list is? It's over 1,000 kids. Over 1,000 kids are waiting on lists to get to an Armenian school. You mean we don't have enough money to build more Armenian schools in Los Angeles? This is a lack of investment that undermines all of us in our future here. This is what I mean when I say we don't take care of it. Yes, it's not permanent diaspora. But if we do take care of it, we can survive as long as we work and attend to ourselves. We also need to strengthen the diaspora psychologically, culturally, intellectually. Our concern has to be here. We need to be connected. You know, you all know very well what's going on in Hayastan. You knew what was going on in Karabakh. But if I asked you, what's the problem right now in Buenos Aires, in our community in Argentina, none of you would know what was the problem with their school, actually, in Argentina. if I ask you even what's happening in Montreal or Toronto, as a community that might need help, a community in Buenos Aires that might need help, or in Paris that a school closed down because there wasn't enough money and the government shut it down and 300 Armenian kids were left without an Armenian school, happened a few years ago. Why aren't we connected in this way? Why isn't there a diaspora network, a sense of some kind that connects us and unites us and we can help each other? Why aren't we concerned about what's going on in all these places? Yes, if you come from Haleb, you're concerned about Haleb. But are you concerned with Sydney, Australia? No. Are you concerned with, with Egypt, Cairo? No. Are you concerned with Toronto if you're not from Canada? No. But this is part of, to me, I heard Khachik's ending comments about a sense of unitedness in the diaspora, which may not be feasible, he said. But if we don't work at it, it's not feasible, in my opinion. But this is the kind of new narrative that we need about who we are and what we are doing. I'm going to skip some of this and come to, okay, so we need a narrative of who we are, what we're doing, where we're going. The biggest, as big of a concern to me is how will this be done? Who will lead this? Who is it that can manage this, what I'm proposing? It's not Armenia, obviously. It's something out here. In the past, it's our organizations that have done this. This is, the Bureau used to be part of this. The Gengen used to do this. This is what direction meant. This is what investment meant. This is what, when we helped Beirut, for example, during the Civil War, meant. This is what it meant to establish this church this is not an ARF, I understand, but similarly, political organizations led our nation. They established the schools, they established the community centers, they established the newspapers, they established our lives out here, they structured it, they gave it a direction, they gave it a concern. Our concern was here locally. Our political identity formed with genocide recognition and Haitad for an independent, Azadanga Hayastan. We have Azadanga Hayastan, and genocide recognition is done, and I'm not sure where our political identity is. I'm not sure what you hang now on being politically an Armenian, energized as an Armenian. I don't know whether the political parties can even give us direction for where to go. I can easily see our nations fractured into hundreds of small pieces. I see this already in Los Angeles, where the classic organizations have kept their memberships, 1,000, 2,000. But the 600, 500,000 others have become their own small groups of people going their own way. No one knows what's happening. There's no one who leads anybody anymore. Everyone has their own events they go to. Everyone has their friends they hang out with. There's no central direction. There's no central sense of authority. There's no sense of oversight. The old way in which we were organized is gone. What will replace it, I don't know. What will take its place as leadership in a generation that doesn't even look at the classic organizations as leaders? I don't know. This is one of the things that scares me, or worries me at least. How will this nation be led without central leadership? Without the old organizations that used to do this? You take them out of the picture, we still control schools in LA. We still control things in LA. We still influence. But it's waning, it's changing. New generations don't have to listen to anything anymore. And all of this sort of spreading out of our community in 1,000 different directions with no one to give it any sense of where to go is worrisome to me. It was worrisome because I don't know what that leads to. I know what this does, what we've lived through, but I don't know what the other one does. Okay. This is obviously a challenge for all of us. I think it's a challenge especially for the ARF, the organization I belong to think what leadership means, to think what direction means, to think what tomorrow is about, to think what this narrative is about. I think this is what we face as a fundamental issue, in my mind, in the diaspora. We are just continuing down this road, and we don't know where it goes, we don't know where it ends. People are falling off or going into different side roads, and we never see them again. And this, to me, is what we need in terms of a narrative of what it is. What is the journey we are on as Spirka Hayg? Where is it going to? What is it that I'm going to tell my son and daughter, or my grandkids? I have 3 grandkids. What is it that I'm going to tell them it is to live in the diaspora? What is it that their future looks like? How is it that they should think about their world, their lives in the diaspora? This is the narrative that we need to develop. I am optimistic because I trust our nation. We will figure this out. But I'm also worried because I haven't seen any signs of really a change, a really a rethinking, a really a deep, being challenged by this ourselves and seeing what we can do. So that's